Ukraine showed off their drone operation that successfully destroyed 41 docked Russian strategic bombers that were apparently prepped and ready to fire cruise missiles into Ukraine, which would have continued the ongoing strategy of bombing civilians while Donald Trump claims that he's working for peace. As Vladimir Putin tosses a couple more middle fingers at him.
President Donald Trump just spoke to Russian President Vladimir Putin on the phone, and that was to discuss the ongoing war with Ukraine and a potential nuclear agreement with Iran. All of that, according to his latest post on Truth Social. Trump said in part, the call lasted approximately 1 hour and 15 minutes. It was a good conversation, but not a conversation that will lead to immediate peace.
More of that post that he put online, he said, we discussed the attack on Russia's docked airplanes by Ukraine and also various other attacks that have been taking place by both sides. It was a good conversation, but not a conversation that you said that will lead to immediate peace. The president also saying that President Putin did say, and very strongly, that he will have to respond to recent attacks on the airfields by Ukraine. Now, what's interesting here is that this is quite the change in tone by President Trump, because on May 25th, and we should put it up for folks, he wrote this: I've always had very good relationship with Vladimir Putin of Russia, but something has happened to him. He has gone absolutely crazy. He is needlessly killing a lot of people, and I'm not just talking about soldiers. Now, back then in May, just a few days ago, the Kremlin said that President Trump was suffering from a, quote, emotional overload, and that's why he was attacking Vladimir Putin. But today, the Kremlin saying essentially that this was a productive conversation. So definitely an interesting change here.
So just like his automatic bowing to Putin back in 2018 in Helsinki, when the Russian leader says something strongly, like, jump, Trump listens and responds by asking, how high?
My first question for you, sir, is who do you believe?
My people came to me, Dan Coates came to me, and some others. They said they think it's Russia. I have President Putin. He just said it's not Russia. I will say this: I don't see any reason why it would be. So I have great confidence in my intelligence people, but I will tell you that President Putin was extremely strong and powerful in his denial.
And since he was so powerful again in telling Trump he'd have to respond to Ukraine's drone attack, he not only characterized it as a both sides thing, but he continued to ask the Senate to delay their sanctions package on Russia over the war that the administration has constantly been afraid of acknowledging was started by Putin in the first place. Senators are growing antsy to move ahead with a massive sanctions package against Russia, and the only thing standing in the way is President Donald Trump. In the midst of the extremely partisan budget reconciliation process, nearly the entire upper chamber has coalesced behind the sanctions package from Lindsey Graham and Richard Blumenthal, which would slap up to 500% bone-breaking tariffs on countries buying energy products from Moscow. And not only that, but for the first time, Pete Hegseth is skipping the multinational organizational meeting for Ukrainian aid, which looks like a nod to Putin that we want nothing to do with getting in the way of his plans to continue attacking. Under his predecessor, Lloyd Austin's leadership, the U.S. served as chair of the group, while he and the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff attended monthly meetings, which were both in person and by video. But Hegseth has upended that position by stepping away from a leadership role, providing no new military aid, and now abandoning the gathering altogether. The moves are so stark, even Trump's former vice president, who's never really felt like publicly criticizing him, directly called him out for opposing the sanctions that were proposed by fellow sycophant Lindsey Graham. So not only is pressure building on this administration when it comes to their budget that Elon Musk is now calling out after he was unceremoniously booted, but his blatant fealty to Vladimir Putin in the face of basic responses to his constant aggression might finally be catching up to him with his fellow Republicans too, even if their opposition is still couched in a fear of directly opposing Trump's Russia-first foreign policy.
What's your response to President Trump saying that President Putin said very strongly that he has to respond to these recent drone attacks on airfields? Is that the way that the American president should be responding to what appears to be a threat from Putin?
I'm not aware of that part of it, but I can just tell you that we should be doing everything we can to help protect the Ukrainians against any act of aggression from Mr. Putin and the Russian army in general.